The champagne glasses rattled on my tray as I weaved through the glittering crowd. Everywhere I looked, the ballrooms sparkled. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors shining like mirrors, gowns that probably cost more than my entire year's salary. The Harrington Gala was the kind of place people like me weren't supposed to exist. Yet here I was, in my plain black server's uniform, shoes that pinched my feet after 6 hours of standing, and a tight bun that tugged at my scalp. "Excuse me," I murmured as I tried to pass between a pair of men in tuxedos. Neither of them moved. To them I wasn't even a person. Just the background. The shadow that held their drinks and disappeared when no longer needed. A portly man with diamond cufflinks grabbed a flute of champagne without looking at me. His cufflinks alone were worth 6 months of my rent. My smile stayed fixed though my stomach twisted. I thought of the envelope on my kitchen table stamped in red. Final notice. My mother's hospital bills weren't going to pay themselves, and this job, miserable as it was the only thing keeping us afloat. Eliza. Marco, another server, passed me carrying empty appetizer plates. He gave me a sympathetic look. "Mrs. Winters wants you at the VIP section. They're out of the special reserve." I groaned under my breath. The VIP section meant velvet ropes, tables filled with the kind of people who traveled with their own bodyguards, and the constant fear that one wrong step could cost me my job. But I nodded. On it. At the bar I loaded a fresh tray with champagne flutes. My gaze wandered for just a second toward the glass doors leading out to the balcony. Beyond them was the city skyline, glittering and free. Just 5 minutes, I told myself. 5 minutes to breathe. No one would notice. Mrs. Winters was busy scolding the kitchen staff. Other servers darted back and forth with trays. The wealthy laughed, drank, and clinked glasses without sparing me a glance. I slipped out the doors. The night air hit me like water after thirst, cool, crisp, carrying the faint scent of rain. I closed my eyes, inhaling deeply, letting the tension slide from my shoulders. For the first time that evening I felt like myself again. "Shouldn't you be working?" The deep voice startled me. My eyes flew open and I nearly stumbled on the polished stone floor. Someone stood in the shadows, half hidden. A cigarette glowed between his fingers, the ember pulsing like an eye in the dark. I'm sorry," I stammered, already backing toward the door. "I just needed a moment to breathe." His voice finished my thought for me. Low, accented, carrying a weight that didn't need to be raised above a murmur. He stepped into the light. My breath caught. He wasn't one of the pampered rich men I'd been serving all night. He was something else entirely. Broad-shouldered. His suit was cut to perfection, but the way he wore it didn't feel like fashion. It felt like armor. His hair was dark, swept back, his jaw sharp enough to cut glass. But it was his eyes that held me. Dark, bottomless, as if they swallowed light instead of reflecting it. And across his cheek, from temple to mouth, ran a pale scar. Recognition shot through me like lightning. I knew who he was. Everyone in the city did. Adrian DeLuca. The name people spoke in whispers. Businessman, they called him. Philanthropist, said the magazines. But the rumors told a darker story. A man whose fortune wasn't built on boardrooms and handshakes but on blood and fear. "I should get back," I whispered. He took one last drag from his cigarette, then crushed it neatly beneath his shoe. "Of course." His gaze never left mine. "What's your name?" Every instinct screamed at me to lie, to run, to disappear. But I couldn't. There was something about his eyes, something that made refusal impossible. "Eliza," I said, my voice barely audible. "Eliza Marlowe." "Eliza," he repeated slowly as though savoring the sound. Then he smiled. Or almost smiled, just the ghost of one. "Don't let me keep you from your duties." I slipped back inside, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might bruise my ribs. When I reached the VIP section minutes later, tray balanced in my trembling hands, he was already there. Sitting at the center table like a king, flanked by men whose suits bulged at the hip where weapons were hidden. And when I passed by, eyes lowered, his voice stopped me cold. "Miss Marlowe." My name in his mouth froze me where I stood. Slowly I lifted my gaze. His eyes locked with mine. He gestured to his cheek. "You missed a spot." Mortified, I swiped at the corner of my mouth, discovering a smudge of lipstick. "Thank you," I murmured. That ghost smile again. Gone in an instant. I turned quickly, eager to escape, when my heels snagged in the plush carpet. The tray wobbled. I overcorrected and one glass tipped, spilling golden champagne straight into the lap of the jeweled blonde sitting beside Adrian. "You stupid girl," she screeched, leaping to her feet as the liquid soaked into her crimson gown. "Do you have any idea what this dress costs?" The ballroom hushed. Eyes burned into me. "I'm so sorry." I grabbed napkins trying to blot the mess. "Don't touch me." She slapped my hand away, face twisted in fury. "You're finished. Do you hear me? I'll make sure you never work another event in this city." My world tilted. Without this job there would be no rent. No treatment for Mom. Nothing. And then Adrian's voice cut through the silence. "Come. Hold. Absolute. Enough, Vanessa." She froze. Everyone froze. "It was an accident," he said. "Mr. Reynolds will take you to have the dress cleaned. The hotel has facilities." Vanessa's protest died on her tongue. She looked furious, humiliated, but she obeyed. "Mrs. Winters," Adrian added smoothly, "your staff seem overworked. Perhaps Miss Marlowe could use a short break to compose herself." Mrs. Winters blinked rapidly. "Of course, Mr. DeLuca. Eliza, take 15 minutes. I stumbled away, my pulse still thundering. He had saved me. But not out of kindness, I could feel it. It was because he'd already chosen me. The staff break room smelled of coffee grounds and disinfectant. I splashed water on my face, trying to erase the humiliation. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Vanessa's threats rang in my ears. Even if Mrs. Winters hadn't fired me tonight, Vanessa could still ruin me with one phone call. Vanessa. Adrian DeLuca had silenced her. When my 15 minutes were up, I expected to be assigned dish duty for the rest of the evening. Instead, Mrs. Winters intercepted me. Her eyes darted nervously toward the VIP section. "Eliza," she said, her voice tight. "You're wanted in the East Wing." The East Wing. My stomach flipped. That was where the hotel's private suites were. Only the wealthiest guests stayed there. "Mr. DeLuca has requested your services for the remainder of the evening." Personally. I slid down my spine. "What kind of services?" "Serving drinks." Mrs. Winters swallowed. "He was insistent. He said he'll pay triple your normal rate." "Triple? Enough to cover next week's hospital bill. Enough to buy groceries. Enough that I couldn't say no, even if I wanted to." "You don't have to go," Mrs. Winters added softly. But her eyes said otherwise. "Nobody refused Adrian DeLuca." "It's fine," I lied, forcing a steadiness I didn't feel. "Be careful, Eliza," she whispered. The service elevator creaked as it carried me upward, each floor passing like a countdown to something I couldn't name. Furious. But also something more dangerous. Curiosity. The 5th floor hallway was silent, muffled by thick carpet. I found Suite 512 and raised my hand to knock. The door swung open before I touched it. A tall man in a black suit stood there, his face impassive, eyes hard. "Miss Marlowe." Not a question. An acknowledgement. I stepped inside. The suite was larger than my entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows, leather couches, crystal tumblers on the bar. Several men occupied the space, their conversations dropping to low murmurs when I entered. And there, by the window, his back to the room, Adrian DeLuca. He turned. His eyes found mine instantly. "Miss Marlowe," he said. "Thank you for joining us." My breath caught again the way it had on the balcony. Every instinct screamed to run. But something deeper, something more dangerous, whispered to stay. "What would you like me to do?" My voice was soft, steady only on the surface. "To serve drinks," he said, his lips curving faintly. "And perhaps to satisfy my curiosity." The room felt charged, as though invisible strings had drawn me here. And in his eyes I saw it clearly. He hadn't saved me by chance. He hadn't asked for me out of need. He wanted me here. The ballroom had returned to life after the accident, though I still felt its aftershocks in every glance that slid toward me. The clinking of crystal, the murmur of conversations, the laughter of the wealthy, all of it seemed muffled against the roar of blood in my ears. I tried to walk quickly, tray in hand, pretending as if nothing had happened, but my hands trembled so badly the glasses rattled against each other. "You okay?" Marco whispered when I passed him. I forced a smile. "Fine." But nothing was fine. My face still burned from Vanessa's shrill accusations, from the sting of her slap against my hand, from the humiliation of hundreds of eyes on me. I ducked into the service corridor, pressing my back against the wall and exhaling shakily. My knees wanted to buckle, but I couldn't collapse. Not here, not now. Eliza. Mrs. Winters appeared, her lipstick smeared from stress, her clipboard clutched like a lifeline. Her eyes flicked over me, sharp but not unkind. Mr. DeLuca asked for you again. I swallowed hard. Why? Her lips pressed into a thin line. I don't know. But when a man like him asks, you don't argue. Just keep your head down. My heart stuttered. Why me? I forced myself upright, adjusted my tray and returned to the floor. The VIP section waited. Velvet ropes separated it from the rest of the ballroom, as though even the elite weren't elite enough. Security men lingered nearby, their suit jackets just tight enough to betray the presence of holsters beneath. I approached, willing my legs not to shake. 3 tables. Men in tailored suits, women dripping in jewels, the low hum of power vibrating between them. And at the center, Adrian DeLuca, calm, watchful, sipping whiskey as if he owned not just the room but the world. He looked up as I neared. Those eyes pinned me, dark and unyielding like steel. Champagne, sir? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, his gaze swept over me, deliberate and assessing. Finally, he took a glass. Thank you, Miss Marlowe. My name again. Spoken like a claim. I turned to offer the rest of the tray to the others. Hands reached, rings flashing, laughter buzzing again. I tried to focus on the task, to be invisible again. But when I stepped back, the heel of my shoe betrayed me. The carpet caught. My ankle twisted. The tray tilted. And then disaster. One glass toppled. Golden champagne cascaded like liquid fire, splashing straight onto Vanessa's lap. For a moment time stopped. Then came the shriek. You stupid girl. Vanessa shot to her feet, crimson gown clinging wetly to her legs. Do you have any idea what this dress cost? Do you know who I am? I'm so sorry, I stammered, setting down the tray, grabbing napkins. Please let me. Don't touch me. She slapped my hand away again, her diamonds flashing like knives. Her face contorted with fury, beautiful in the cruel way of someone who'd never been denied anything. You're finished. Do you hear me? Finished. The air turned heavy. The entire ballroom had gone quiet again. All eyes were on us. Mrs. Winters rushed forward, horror painted across her face. Ms. Moretti, please, the hotel will cover the cleaning. No, Vanessa snapped. I want her fired. Right here. Right now. Something inside me cracked. The weight of weeks, of months, of years pressed down all at once. Rent I couldn't pay. Hospital bills multiplying like weeds. Nights working double shifts just to scrape by. And now this woman, this stranger, ready to destroy me because of an accident. I stood frozen, napkins trembling in my hands, shame choking me. And then Adrian spoke. Enough. He hadn't raised his voice, but it cut through the air like a blade. The entire room stilled. Vanessa's fury faltered, confusion flickering across her features. But Adrian, look at what she... Accidents happen, he said, his tone flat, final. Mr. Reynolds will escort you to have the dress cleaned. One of his men moved instantly, gesturing for Vanessa to follow. Her mouth opened as if to protest, but one look at Adrian's expression shut her up. She cast me one last venomous glare before sweeping away. Adrian turned back to Mrs. Winters. Your staff seem overworked. Miss Marlowe deserves a short break. Mrs. Winters nodded, her relief palpable. Of course, Mr. DeLuca. Eliza, 15 minutes. I backed away, my pulse hammering, the humiliation still hot but now tangled with confusion, with something far more dangerous. Why had he intervened? Why me? The staff break room felt too small, too stale. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, washing everything in sickly yellow. I sat at the table, staring at the cheap clock on the wall, listening to the tick-tick-tick of my borrowed minutes. I splashed water on my face at the sink, watching it drip down into the rust-stained basin. My reflection in the cracked mirror looked pale, tired, terrified. Why had Adrian DeLuca, the Adrian DeLuca, protected me? It didn't make sense. People like him didn't notice people like me. And yet he had silenced Vanessa, spared my job, and even arranged for me to rest. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. The clock chimed softly. My 15 minutes were up. I stood, straightened my uniform and braced myself. Mrs. Winters intercepted me before I could step back onto the floor. Her expression was strange, tight with unease. "Eliza," she said. "You're wanted in the East Wing." I blinked. "The East Wing? That's where the private suites are. Mr. DeLuca has requested you, personally." My stomach dropped. "Requested me? To serve drinks?" She hesitated, chewing her lip. "He said he'll pay triple your rate." Triple? My throat closed. Triple meant I could pay next week's hospital bill. Maybe even two. "You don't have to go," Mrs. Winters said, though her tone suggested otherwise. But of course I had to. No one said no to Adrian DeLuca. Not even Mrs. Winters. I forced a nod. "It's fine." Her eyes softened with pity. "Be careful." The service elevator groaned as it carried me up. My heart pounded louder with every ding announcing another floor. When the doors opened on the 5th floor, silence pressed down on me. The hallway was hushed, carpet muffling my footsteps. The air smelled faintly of cedar and polish, expensive and cold. I found suite 512 and lifted my hand to knock. The door opened before my knuckles touched it. A man stood there, tall, broad, his expression carved from stone. His eyes flicked over me with practiced disinterest, then he stepped aside. "Miss Marlowe." Not a question. A statement. I stepped inside. The suite stretched before me, vast and luxurious. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the city sprawled in glittering light below. Leather sofas. A mahogany bar stocked with bottles whose labels I couldn't even pronounce. Men lingered in the room, some in quiet conversation, others eyeing me with faint curiosity. Their suits fit too well, their posture too alert. These weren't businessmen, they were soldiers in disguise. And at the window, his back to me, stood Adrian DeLuca. The city lights haloed him, making his silhouette seem even larger, more imposing. He turned. His eyes found mine instantly. "Miss Marlowe," he said, his voice low, smooth. "Thank you for joining us." I froze, my throat dry. "What would you like me to do?" His lips curved faintly. "Serve drinks." He paused. "And perhaps," his gaze lingered on me, sharp as a knife, "satisfy my curiosity." A shiver slid down my spine. The room seemed smaller, charged, as if invisible strings pulled me closer to him. And in his eyes I saw it clearly. This wasn't about champagne. It was about me. The suite was buzzing with low voices and the faint clink of glassware. But the moment Adrian gestured for me to follow him, it was as though every sound dimmed. My feet hesitated, but my body moved anyway, as if drawn by a string I couldn't break. He led me through a wide doorway into what must have been the master bedroom. It was large, elegant, the kind of place that could have been featured in a design magazine. A king-sized bed, rich fabrics, heavy curtains framing tall glass doors that opened onto a private balcony. He pushed one open with a smooth motion. The cool night air swept in, carrying the city's scent, car exhaust, faint rain, and something metallic. "Come," he said softly. I hesitated. Every warning bell inside me rang. But his voice, it wasn't a request. I stepped out onto the balcony. From here the city stretched endlessly, a glittering web of lights against the black sky. Cars crawled like fireflies far below, so small and distant they barely seemed real. Adrian stood at the railing, hands resting lightly on it, shoulders broad beneath his tailored suit. He didn't look at me immediately. For a moment, it was as though he had forgotten I was there, lost in his own thoughts. Then his eyes shifted to mine. "Do you know why I asked for you?" My throat was dry. "To serve drinks." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "No. That's the excuse." He studied me in silence for a long moment. The weight of his gaze made me want to shrink into the shadows, yet also froze me in place. "You were different," he said finally. "Most people in that ballroom, I could predict their every move. They laugh when expected, they flatter, they pretend they matter. You are real. I saw you step outside, desperate for air. You don't belong in that room, Eliza." My heart thudded. "I don't belong here either." "You belong where I say you belong." His tone was even, but there was steel in it. "And right now you belong here with me." I forced myself to breathe evenly. "What do you want from me?" Adrian's gaze drifted back to the city. "I'll tell you what I'm offering." He turned, facing me fully now, and the shift in his attention was overwhelming, as though the entire world had narrowed to just the two of us. "I need someone." Not for what you're thinking, he added quickly, almost amused at the panic that must have flashed across my face. I need someone trustworthy, discreet. Someone who doesn't come from my world. My last assistant. Left under unfortunate circumstances. He paused as if gauging my reaction. I gripped the railing to steady myself. And you think I'm what? Suitable? I know you are. His voice was quiet but absolute. I shook my head. You don't know anything about me. I know enough. You work tirelessly for little pay. You put your mother first. You're loyal because you have no choice but to be. And you're clever enough to survive in a room full of predators. His eyes darkened. That's more than most people I've met in my entire life. I wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, that I wasn't special. But the words stuck in my throat. What exactly would this job involve? Managing my schedule. Overseeing household affairs. Handling personal correspondence. Occasionally accompanying me to public functions. His voice was smooth, almost casual. Nothing illegal. Nothing that would compromise your principles. The way he said it made me doubt every word. And in return? I whispered. $15,000 a month. Full medical coverage. Private facilities for your mother's treatment. The best doctors. The best care. The figure struck me like a physical blow. 15,000. More money than I'd ever seen in my life. Enough to clear our debts, cover mom's treatments, and maybe even let me finish my degree one day. It was everything I had dreamed of, dangled in front of me by the most dangerous man I'd ever met. Why me? I asked again, more quietly this time. Adrian stepped closer. Close enough that I caught the faint scent of sandalwood and something darker beneath it. His voice dropped to a murmur. Because I see something in you I recognize. Hunger. The kind that comes from having nothing handed to you, from fighting for every scrap. He tilted his head, eyes searching mine. I grew up with nothing. Less than nothing. In a place where the only way out was to become the thing everyone feared. And I see the same fire in you, Eliza. I shook my head quickly. You're wrong. I'm not like you. His mouth curved faintly. Not yet. The wind tugged at my uniform, chilling me. He noticed. Without a word, he slipped off his jacket and draped it over my shoulders. The fabric was heavy, warm, carrying his scent. You don't have to answer tonight, he said softly, reaching into the jacket pocket and sliding a card into my hand. It was plain, matte black, embossed with nothing but a number. Think about it. Call me when you decide. I stared at the card, my fingers trembling. And if I say no? My voice cracked on the last word. For a moment his expression didn't change. But something flickered in his eyes, a coldness sharp and deadly. Then you continue serving drinks. Falling behind on your mother's bills. Watching as they move her into a state facility where she'll receive the bare minimum of care. And where in 6 months she will die. The words slammed into me. My breath hitched. How do you? I make it my business to know things, he interrupted softly. He stepped closer, so close that the railing pressed into my back. I can be a powerful friend, Eliza. Or a terrible enemy. The choice is yours. His words left no illusion. It wasn't a choice. Not really. Before I could respond, one of his men stepped out onto the balcony. Sir Donovan is on the line. Urgent. Adrian's jaw tightened slightly. Tell him I'll return the call in 5 minutes. The man nodded and slipped back inside. I exhaled shakily. I should get back to work. Keep it, he said. His voice was calm, but his grip was unyielding. Return it when you give me your answer. I met his gaze, heart racing. I haven't agreed to anything. Not yet. His lips curved faintly, a smile without warmth. But you will. His confidence chilled me more than the wind ever could. When I finally left the hotel that night, Adrian DeLuca's jacket wrapped around me like a shroud. The business card burned in my pocket like a brand. The city bus rattled as it carried me home. Rain streaked across the windows, distorting the neon lights into wavering blurs. I sat rigidly, clutching Adrian's jacket around me, the card heavy in my pocket. 15,000 a month. Full medical coverage. Everything I needed, everything Mom needed. All tied to him. The thought made me sick. And yet it also made my pulse quicken with something dangerously close to hope. By the time I trudged up the 4 flights of stairs to my apartment, exhaustion had settled deep in my bones. The door stuck in the frame as always, and the familiar smell of mildew greeted me. One bedroom. A kitchen barely big enough to turn around in. My life condensed to survival. I hung Adrian's jacket carefully over a chair. Looked out of place, too fine for these walls. Then I collapsed onto the couch, still in my uniform, and closed my eyes. Sleep came quickly, though it was filled with dark eyes and whispered promises. The shrill ring of my phone jolted me awake. Pale dawn light filtered through the curtains. My hand fumbled for the phone. "Hello. Miss Marlowe." The voice was unfamiliar, clipped, professional. "This is Dr. Abernathy from Sunset Care Center. I'm calling about your mother." My heart stuttered. "What happened?" "Is she?" "She's stable," he assured quickly. "But her cancer has progressed to the lymph nodes. We need to start a new immunotherapy regimen immediately." My stomach dropped. "And the cost?" He hesitated. "The first cycle will be around $27,000. With follow-up care, closer to $40,000 for the first 3 months." The room spun. 40,000. I couldn't even imagine that number. "Miss Marlowe?" he prompted gently. I'll figure something out." My voice sounded distant, mechanical. After hanging up, I sat in silence, staring at Adrian's jacket draped over the chair. My chest ached, my hands shook. There was no figuring this out. Not on my own. Not in time. The business card was still in the pocket. I pulled it out slowly, staring at the number. Elegant black. Simple. Waiting. If I called, everything changed. My life would no longer be my own. But if I didn't call, my mother would die. I dialed before I could change my mind. The line clicked. A woman answered, her tone clipped and professional. "Yes. My name is Eliza Marlowe," I said, my voice trembling. Mr. DeLuca made me an offer last night. I need to speak to him." Pause. "One moment." Silence stretched, long enough for me to wonder if I'd been disconnected. Then his voice filled the line. Smooth. Distinctive. Wrapping around my name like a promise and a threat all at once. "Eliza." My throat tightened. I accept your offer." There was no surprise in his voice. Only satisfaction. "I'm glad to hear it." I swallowed. "When do I start?" "I'll send a car tomorrow morning at 8. Pack what you need for an extended stay." "Extended stay?" The words scraped from my throat. "You didn't mention." "The position requires you to be on call at all times. There are private quarters for you at my residence." His tone left no room for negotiation. "Is that a problem?" "Yes." Everything in me screamed yes. But then I saw Mom's face in my mind. Her thin arms, her brave smile despite the pain. "No," I whispered. "No problem." "Good." His voice was velvet over steel. "We'll discuss the details tomorrow." Pause. "And Eliza?" "Yes. You've made a wise choice." The line went dead. I sat there, phone trembling in my hand, the weight of what I'd done crashing over me. There was no going back. The car arrived at exactly 8 o'clock the next morning, as Adrian had promised. I was waiting outside with 2 suitcases, everything I owned worth bringing. Clothes, a few books, my mother's photo framed in wood worn smooth at the edges, and nothing else. The rest of my life fit into boxes I'd shoved into a cheap storage unit the night before. The vehicle that pulled up was no ordinary car. A sleek black Bentley, polished so clean it reflected the gray morning sky. The man who stepped out was just as immaculate. Tall, dressed in a dark suit, his face a blank slate of professionalism. "Eliza Marlowe?" His voice was low, clipped. "Yes." He opened the rear door. "Mr. DeLuca is expecting you." I slid into the back seat. The leather was soft, the faint scent of polish and something floral clinging to the air. My suitcases disappeared into the trunk as if by magic. Then the driver, who introduced himself only as Frank, slipped behind the wheel. The city blurred past. Crowded streets, cracked sidewalks, neon signs flickering against tired brick. My world. My mother's world. And then slowly the scenery began to change. Traffic thinned. Buildings grew larger, newer, shinier. We wound upward, away from the crowded heart of the city, climbing into hills where iron gates guarded long driveways and mansions perched like fortresses above the skyline. I pressed my forehead lightly against the window. Each turn carried me further from everything familiar, deeper into something I couldn't name. Finally, Frank steered the car through towering gates that slid open at our approach. A long gravel driveway stretched ahead, bordered by manicured gardens so perfect they looked unreal. Cameras watched from discreet posts. Men in suits strolled the perimeter, too alert to be gardeners. The mansion rose before me. Not just a house. A fortress in disguise. Gray stone walls climbed 3 stories high, windows arched and gleaming, a roof of dark slate. The kind of building that whispered wealth and power. Frank pulled up to the massive oak doors. They opened before he could knock. A woman stepped out. Tall, slender, her black suit perfectly tailored, silver streaks running through her pinned hair. Her eyes, dark, sharp, evaluating, fixed on me with something colder than curiosity. "Miss Marlowe," she said. Her accent was similar to Adrian's, heavier, older. "I am Sophia DeLuca. I manage this household." I extended my hand, my voice careful. "It's nice to meet you." She didn't take it. Her gaze swept over me from my thrift store blouse to my scuffed suitcase wheels. "You will address me as Ms. Sophia. Follow me." Chastened, I nodded and trailed her inside. The foyer alone could have swallowed my entire apartment building. High ceilings vaulted above us, supported by stone columns. A chandelier glittered overhead, casting fractured light across marble floors. Paintings lined the walls, oil portraits and landscapes, each probably worth more than my yearly salary. I tried not to gape, but it was impossible. Everything felt larger than life, too polished, too perfect. "This way," Sophia said, her heels clicking softly as she led me down a long hallway. She didn't speak further, but the silence between us wasn't comfortable. It was sharp, heavy with unspoken judgment. We stopped outside a set of double doors at the rear of the house. Sophia knocked once, then opened them without waiting for a response. "The girl is here," she announced. Adrian stood inside, near a massive mahogany desk. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, painting him in gold and shadow. He turned when I entered, setting aside a tumbler of amber liquid. "Thank you, Zia," he said. His voice was softer with her, though his tone carried the same command. "Please show Miss Marlowe to her quarters after we speak." Sophia inclined her head and withdrew, closing the doors behind her with a sound that felt like finality. Suddenly it was just the two of us. Adrian's gaze fixed on me, steady, unreadable. He wasn't wearing a jacket, only a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, exposing strong forearms. The scar across his face seemed sharper in daylight, a pale reminder of violence never far from him. "Eliza." He spoke my name like a possession. "Welcome to your new home." I clutched my purse tighter, grounding myself. "Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. DeLuca." "Adrian," he corrected gently. "If we're to work closely, there's no need for formality." He gestured toward a seating area near the fireplace. "Sit." I perched on the edge of a leather chair. He sat across from me, steepling his fingers as he studied me. His eyes seemed to strip me bare. "Before we begin," he said, "you should know. Your mother's transfer to Blackwell Medical Center has already been arranged. Dr. Abernathy will oversee her case there. She'll begin the new treatment protocol tomorrow." The words hit me like a physical blow. My breath caught. "Blackwell? That's the best facility in the country. How did you?" "I made a call." He shrugged as if moving mountains were effortless. "All expenses will be covered under your contract." Relief surged so sharply it left me dizzy. For the first time in months, hope unfurled inside me. "Thank you," I whispered, though the words felt painfully inadequate. Adrian waved it away. "It's a business arrangement. You provide a service, I provide compensation." His eyes softened just slightly. "Though I'm pleased it gives you peace of mind." I swallowed. "What exactly will my duties be?" As I said, "Managing my household affairs, my schedule, coordinating staff. Sophia has handled this for years, but she is returning to Italy next month. You'll work under her until then." I hesitated. "She doesn't seem to like me." A faint smile touched his mouth. "Sophia doesn't like anyone. Especially women in my household." The way he said it made something twist inside me. "Women in your household?" His expression didn't change. "Your position is strictly professional. Whatever rumors you've heard, I don't mix business with pleasure." He crept up my neck. "I didn't think." "Yes, you did," he interrupted, amusement flickering. It's natural to wonder. But your virtue is safe. I wasn't sure if I felt relieved or disappointed. Adrian leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping. There is one matter you must understand. Discretion is not optional. You will see and hear things here that cannot leave these walls. People will come who are not to be acknowledged outside this house. Conversations will occur that you must forget. The threat beneath his words was clear. I understand, I said quickly. His eyes bored into mine. Do you? I forced myself not to look away. I won't betray your trust. After a long silence, he nodded. Good. He stood abruptly, returning to his desk. Sophia will show you around. You'll begin tomorrow. He pressed the intercom. Zia, please come to the study. The doors opened moments later. Sophia appeared, expression still cool. Show Miss Marlowe to her quarters, Adrian instructed. I rose, clutching my purse like a shield. At the door his voice stopped me. Eliza. I turned back. He was watching me with an intensity that stole my breath. Welcome to the family. Sophia's heels clicked against the polished floors as she led me through the mansion. This will be your wing, she said, opening a heavy door that revealed another long corridor. The air here smelled faintly of lavender, fresher than the rest of the house. She pushed open a door halfway down. Your quarters. I stepped inside and froze. The room was larger than my entire apartment. A king-sized bed dressed in plush linens. A sitting area with soft chairs and a table already set with flowers. A bathroom with marble counters, a deep soaking tub and a walk-in shower that gleamed. This is excessive, I murmured. Sophia's mouth thinned. Mr. DeLuca insisted. The previous assistant's quarters were far smaller. Something in her tone made me glance at her sharply. What happened to the previous assistant? Her eyes flicked to me, unreadable. He is no longer here. That was all she offered. Your duties begin at 6 a.m., she continued briskly. You'll review Mr. DeLuca's schedule, prepare necessary documents, ensure his breakfast preferences are communicated to the kitchen. He rises at 7, expects his briefing by 7:30. He does not tolerate lateness. I nodded quickly, trying to memorize every word. She led me further through the mansion, pointing out key rooms. The kitchen, the formal dining room, Adrian's private gym. You are never to enter the security office without permission, she warned sharply. We passed heavy wooden doors on the west side. Sophia paused, her gaze hard. This is Mr. DeLuca's private residence. You will not enter unless invited. Ever. What counts as an emergency? I asked before I could stop myself. Her eyes flicked with irritation. Fire. Intruders. Earthquake. Nothing less. The grounds were just as overwhelming. Gardens manicured to perfection. A pool glittering under the sun, tennis courts and dense woods forming a natural barrier. Guards lingered at the edges, eyes scanning constantly. Do not wander beyond the gardens without alerting security, Sophia said flatly. They have orders to shoot unidentified persons on the outer grounds. I swallowed hard. Noted. By the time we returned to my quarters, my head spun with rules and protocols. You'll need appropriate attire, Sophia added, eyeing my simple blouse. A car will take you shopping tomorrow. Mr. DeLuca has arranged an account. That's not necessary. It is not a suggestion. Her tone cut me off. Your appearance reflects on him. Your wardrobe is inadequate. I bit back a retort. There was no winning against her. Dinner will be delivered here tonight. Tomorrow you'll dine with the senior staff for breakfast and lunch. Dinner is taken with Mr. DeLuca when he is in residence. My surprise must have shown because Sophia's eyes narrowed. He prefers company. Usually myself or his security chief. Do you object? No, I said quickly. Good. He studied me a moment longer. Then, softer, almost reluctantly, a word of advice, Miss Marlowe. My nephew does not bring women into his household without purpose. Whatever he told you, time will reveal the truth. Be prepared. Her heels clicked away, leaving me alone. I sat at the small table in the sitting room, staring at the meal that had been delivered. Salmon, roasted vegetables, fresh bread. Food finer than anything I'd eaten in years. On my phone was a text from Dr. Abernathy. Your mother will be transferred tomorrow morning. Treatment approved. Tears blurred my eyes. Relief, gratitude, fear all tangled together. This place was beautiful, yes. Luxurious beyond anything I'd known. But Sophia was right. It wasn't a home. It was a gilded cage. And I had just locked myself inside. The day had felt endless. My new routine was already grinding me down. Rising before dawn, organizing a schedule I barely understood, keeping track of dozens of names, meetings, and errands. Sophia hovered constantly, her sharp eyes catching every mistake. By evening, I wanted nothing more than to collapse into the massive bed waiting in my quarters. But just as I was preparing to retreat, a knock sounded on my door. When I opened it, one of the suited guards stood there. "Mr. DeLuca requests your company for dinner." My heart skipped. Dinner? With him? The guard's face betrayed no emotion. "This way." I followed, nerves twisting tighter with every step. The dining room was cavernous, its long polished table gleaming under the soft glow of a chandelier. But only two places were set, one at the head, one to his right. Adrian sat already, dressed not in his usual business armor but in a dark sweater that softened his appearance just enough to be dangerous. A glass of red wine rested in his hand. "Eliza," he greeted, rising slightly. "Join me." I slid into the chair beside him, unsure where to put my hands. My uniform felt plain against the elegance of the room. He poured wine into my glass, the liquid catching the light like rubies. "Do you drink?" "Not usually," I admitted. "Tonight you should." His mouth quirked faintly. "It helps the nerves." I took a cautious sip. Smooth, rich, nothing like the cheap bottles I'd once shared with friends during college. The first course arrived. Seared scallops with lemon butter, placed neatly in front of us by a silent staff member who vanished as quickly as he'd appeared. Adrian cut into his calmly. "Tell me about yourself, Eliza." I blinked. "What do you want to know?" "Everything." His tone was deceptively light, but his eyes told me he meant it. I hesitated. "I grew up here in the city. My father left when I was 8. My mom, she raised me alone. She worked at a diner until she got sick." He listened without interrupting, his gaze steady as if every word mattered. "And you?" I asked finally, surprising myself. "Tell me about you." A faint smile touched his lips. Not many people would dare ask that. "Then don't answer," I said quickly. But he set down his fork, leaning back. "I was born in Palermo. My family had nothing. Less than nothing. My father died in prison when I was 12. My mother brought me here hoping for better. She worked herself to the bone and I worked harder. I built everything you see from nothing. And I will never forget that." His voice was low, almost rough with memory. Something stirred inside me, not sympathy exactly but understanding. Hunger knew hunger. "Do you regret it?" I asked softly. "What you had to do?" His eyes darkened, but he didn't look away. "Regret is useless. You make choices, you live with them. That's survival." The second course arrived. Steak perfectly cooked. I barely touched mine, too conscious of his presence. "You're quiet," he observed. I'm trying to figure you out," I admitted before I could stop myself. His laugh was low, surprising. "And what have you figured so far?" "That you like control," I said carefully. His eyes glinted. "Correct. And that you don't do anything without a reason." "Also correct." I hesitated. "So why me? Why bring me here?" He leaned closer, his gaze burning into mine. "Because you interest me. And I don't let go of things that interest me." The words made my stomach flip, equal parts fear and something more dangerous. When dessert came, a delicate crème brûlée, I barely tasted it. My thoughts spun too fast, tangled in everything he'd said, everything he hadn't. As dinner ended, he rose, extending a hand to me. I placed mine in his without thinking. His grip was warm, steady. "Thank you for joining me," he said softly. "You may go now." I withdrew quickly, retreating down the hall with my pulse hammering. In my quarters, I closed the door and pressed my back against it, breathing hard. Dinner with Adrian DeLuca had felt like dining with fire. Beautiful. Dangerous. Impossible to forget. I thought dinner had been the peak of my disorientation. I was wrong. 2 nights later, Sophia entered my quarters without knocking, holding a garment bag. "Get dressed," she ordered. I blinked. "For what?" "You're accompanying Mr. DeLuca tonight." My stomach dropped. Accompanying him? To the Langford Foundation Gala. You'll represent him as his associate. I froze. But I'm not. Sophia's eyes cut like knives. Do as you're told. He's waiting. The dress inside the garment bag took my breath away. Midnight blue, silk that shimmered faintly under the light. It fit me perfectly as though it had been tailored without my knowledge. An hour later I was in the car beside Adrian. He wore a black tuxedo, his presence filling the space effortlessly. You look beautiful, he said simply, eyes sweeping over me. Heat climbed my neck. Thank you. The gala was even grander than the Harrington event. Photographers crowded the entrance, flashes blinding as we stepped onto the carpet. Adrian's hand rested lightly at the small of my back, guiding me forward. The touch was casual, protective, and utterly possessive. Whispers erupted immediately. Who's she? New associate? His mistress, more like. My cheeks burned, but Adrian's expression didn't flicker. He was untouchable, every step radiating confidence. Inside, chandeliers bathed the ballroom in golden light. The city's elite mingled, drinks in hand, laughter echoing. But every glance seemed to cut toward us, speculation crackling in the air. Adrian leaned close, his breath brushing my ear. Ignore them. That's easy for you to say, I murmured. His faint smile curved. You'll get used to it. We moved through the crowd. Men greeted Adrian with handshakes too eager, women with smiles too polished. I stood silently at his side, feeling more like an accessory than a person. And then, Vanessa. She appeared in a scarlet gown, her smile sharp as glass. Adrian, she purred. And, Liza, was it? How surprising to see you here. Upgraded from spilling champagne to clinging to his arm. My chest tightened. Before I could reply, Adrian's voice cut in, cool and absolute. Vanessa. You'll address Miss Marlowe with respect. Her smile faltered, but only slightly. Of course. I simply meant. You meant to provoke her, Adrian interrupted smoothly. Don't. The steel in his tone silenced her. With a brittle laugh, she excused herself, retreating into the crowd. Relief flooded me, but also something else. A strange, guilty satisfaction at his defense. The rest of the night passed in a blur of introductions, forced smiles, champagne glasses I barely sipped from. Adrian never left my side, his presence both shield and chain. As we left, cameras flashed again. His hand tightened at my waist. In the car, silence stretched. Finally, I whispered, "Why bring me?" His eyes turned to me, dark, unreadable. "Because you belong with me, Eliza. And the world needs to see it." My heart pounded. "I don't belong in that world." "Yes, you do." His tone was final, leaving no room for argument. "Because I say you do." I turned away, staring out the window as the city lights streaked past. But deep down I knew the truth. From the moment he'd spoken my name at the Harrington Gala, I hadn't belonged anywhere else. The morning after the gala, I woke with a headache. Maybe from the champagne I hadn't really wanted, maybe from the whispers that still echoed in my ears. Who's she? His mistress. She won't last. I pushed the thoughts aside and focused on my duties. Sophia's sharp commands didn't leave much space for reflection anyway. "Breakfast briefing," she snapped, thrusting a stack of papers into my hands. "Meetings at 10, lunch with a senator, calls with overseas partners. Make sure he has the correct files in order. He despises disorganization." "Yes, Miss Sophia," I murmured. By 7:30 I was in Adrian's study. He sat behind his desk, a silver pen moving swiftly across papers. His scar looked sharper in the morning light, his features carved from focus. "Good morning," he said without looking up. "Good morning." I laid the briefing before him. He glanced at it, nodding. Efficient. It shouldn't have felt like praise, but it did. The rest of the morning blurred with errands and quiet panic. By early afternoon I found myself carrying files down a back hallway, the kind that rarely saw visitors. Voices drifted from a side room, low, hushed, sharp. I paused, hidden by the doorframe. "The girl's just like Antonio," a male voice muttered. My stomach clenched. "She'll end up the same way," another replied, darker, edged with contempt. "You think he'll keep her around? She'll disappear like the last one." My grip tightened on the folder in my hands. "Antonio was stupid," the first voice said. "He thought he could outsmart him. Thought he could run to the feds. The boss gave him too much trust. And look where it got him. Gone. Buried for all we know. A harsh laugh. That's what happens when you betray DeLuca. Their footsteps moved away, the voices fading. I pressed myself against the wall, heart hammering. Antonio. The last assistant. Betrayal. The feds. Gone. Had Adrian killed him? The thought was absurd, horrifying. And yet, wasn't that what everyone whispered about him? That his empire was built on blood? I stumbled back to my quarters, slamming the door shut and sinking onto the bed. My hands shook so badly the folder slipped from my grip. The silence pressed in. For the first time I felt the walls not as protection but as a cage. Maybe Sophia had been right. Women didn't survive here without a purpose. And men, maybe not even men, survived betrayal. I lay awake that night, tossing, turning, haunted by Antonio's name. By the memory of those men's voices. By the unspoken truth. I was in Adrian's world now. And in his world, loyalty wasn't just expected. It was life or death. The next evening Adrian called for me. "Join me in the library," the guard said, his expression unreadable. The library was enormous, its shelves stretching high, filled with leather-bound volumes that looked more decorative than read. Adrian stood at the window, staring out at the gardens lit by soft lanterns. He didn't turn when I entered. "Close the door." I obeyed, my pulse unsteady. "I hear you've been asking questions," he said quietly. My stomach dropped. Antonio," he continued, finally turning. His eyes fixed on me, sharp as glass. "That name has been circling your thoughts." I swallowed hard. "I didn't mean to overhear." "But you did." His voice was calm, too calm. "And now you wonder. What happened to him? Will it happen to you?" The silence between us stretched. "Yes," I whispered. "I do wonder." He studied me for a long moment, then gestured toward the leather chairs by the fire. "Sit." I sat stiffly, my hands knotted together. Adrian poured 2 glasses of whiskey, setting one before me. "Antonio was my assistant for 3 years. Smart. Loyal. Or so I believed. Until the FBI came knocking." His jaw tightened. "He gave them information. Nothing crucial, but enough to test me. To test whether my trust was weakness." My throat tightened. "And what happened to him?" Adrian sipped his drink, his gaze steady on mine. "I spared him." The word stunned me. "You spared him?" "He was family," Adrian said simply. "Not by blood but by bond. He betrayed me, yes. But I don't kill family. I sent him away. New name, new life, far from here. But his betrayal taught me a lesson I will never forget." His eyes darkened, the firelight reflecting in them like embers. "Loyalty is everything, Eliza. Without it there is nothing. Money, power, love. All of it collapses if loyalty fails. Do you understand?" I nodded slowly. "Yes." "No," he leaned closer, his intensity suffocating. "You think you understand. But loyalty is not convenience. It is not words. It is sacrifice. It is standing beside me when every sane voice tells you to run. It is binding yourself so tightly to me that betrayal becomes impossible." My breath caught. "And if I can't?" His voice dropped to a whisper. "Then you will vanish from my world. Like Antonio. If you're lucky." The threat hung heavy between us. I forced myself to meet his gaze. "I haven't betrayed you." "Not yet," he said softly. "But temptation is everywhere. Fear makes people weak. Money makes them foolish. Love makes them blind. I will test you, Eliza. And you will either prove yourself, or you will not." The silence stretched, thick with tension. Finally he leaned back, his expression softening. "But I don't think you'll fail me." My voice trembled. "Why not?" His mouth curved faintly. "As I chose you. And I don't choose wrong." He stood, ending the conversation as swiftly as he had begun it. "Go. Get some rest. Tomorrow will be long." I rose on shaky legs, retreating toward the door. But his voice stopped me one last time. "Eliza." I turned. His gaze locked with mine, dark and unyielding. "Remember this, I forgive mistakes. I do not forgive betrayal." I nodded quickly, heart pounding. "I understand." He studied me for a long moment, then turned back to the window. Dismissed, I fled down the hall, his words echoing in my mind. Forgive mistakes. Not betrayal. And in that moment I realized something terrifying. Adrian DeLuca might not kill for disobedience. But for betrayal, he would burn the world down. The house was quiet that night, too quiet. Most of Adrian's men were out on some unnamed business, leaving only a skeleton crew patrolling the halls. I sat at my desk in the small office Sophia had assigned to me, sorting through the endless schedule of meetings and calls. My eyes blurred over the words. My hand ached from writing. When the clock struck midnight, I gave up. Stretching, I gathered the folders and headed toward Adrian's study to leave them on his desk. He preferred to review everything first thing in the morning. The door was ajar. Inside, Adrian sat by the fire. Not behind his desk, not armored in command, but sunk into a leather chair, a glass in his hand. The flames threw shadows across his face, softening the scar, painting him in warmth instead of steel. I hesitated at the threshold. Should I come back later? His gaze lifted. For once, the sharpness in it was dulled, softened by exhaustion, and something else I couldn't name. No, he said quietly. Come in. I stepped inside, setting the folders on the edge of his desk. But my eyes lingered on him, caught by the strange stillness in his posture. Are you all right? I asked before I could stop myself. A faint smile ghosted across his lips. That's a dangerous question to ask a man like me. Maybe, I said softly. But I meant it. He studied me for a long moment, then gestured toward the chair across from him. Sit, Eliza. I did. For a while neither of us spoke. The fire crackled. Outside, the wind brushed against the windows like restless fingers. Finally, he said, Do you know what people see when they look at me? I shook my head. They see power, wealth, fear. A man who bends the city to his will. But they don't see the years it took to build. The hunger. The blood. The sacrifices. His eyes met mine, dark and unyielding. They don't see the cost. My chest tightened. And what is the cost? His mouth curved faintly, but it wasn't a smile. Everything. I swallowed, unsure what to say. Do you regret it? I asked softly. He leaned back, swirling the liquid in his glass. Regret is for men who can afford it. I can't. Silence stretched. The firelight flickered across his face and I realized he looked tired. Not weak, never weak, but human in a way I'd never seen. Something inside me shifted. He wasn't just the devil in a suit, the man who terrified an entire city. He was also a boy from Palermo who had clawed his way out of nothing, carrying scars that went deeper than his skin. Adrian, I whispered without thinking. His gaze snapped to mine at the sound of his name in my mouth. The air between us thickened. And then he was standing, moving toward me with slow, deliberate steps. He stopped just before me, close enough that I could feel his warmth. Eliza, he said softly. Do you know what happens if I cross this line? My breath caught. What line? He bent, his face inches from mine, his eyes searching. The one where you stop being just my assistant. My heart pounded. And what happens if you cross it? His lips curved faintly. Then you belong to me. Entirely. The words should have terrified me. Maybe they did. But they also made something inside me ache with a heat I couldn't ignore. My voice trembled. I don't know if I can belong to anyone. Then don't think, he whispered. Just feel. And before I could speak, before I could breathe, his lips were on mine. The kiss was nothing like I expected. Fierce, yes, demanding, but also achingly tender. His hand cradled my jaw, tilting my face toward him, while his other arm wrapped around me, pulling me against him as though he feared I might vanish. For a moment the world fell away. No mansion, no debts, no shadows of betrayal. Just heat, fire, and the taste of him. When he pulled back, his breath was ragged, his eyes burning into mine. If you stay, he murmured, his thumb brushing my cheek, you're mine. All of you. No return. My chest heaved. I should have said no. I should have walked away. But the truth was there, raw and undeniable. I didn't want to. I'm already here, I whispered. Something flickered in his gaze. Satisfaction maybe, or relief. He kissed me again, harder this time, and the line we'd been balancing on for weeks shattered completely. The next day felt different. I moved through my duties with the memory of his lips lingering on mine, every nerve still alive with it. Adrian was his usual composed self, but every glance he gave me carried an undercurrent that hadn't been there before. By nightfall, the house buzzed with unusual tension. Guards doubled their patrols. Sophia's mouth was tighter than ever, her eyes sharp with worry. "What's happening?" I asked her quietly. "Business," she said curtly. "Stay in your quarters tonight." But when have I ever done what I was told? Curiosity, or recklessness, drew me toward the west wing where Adrian's private rooms were. Voices echoed down the hall, harsh and clipped. I pressed myself against the wall, listening. "Making moves on the docks," one man said. "They hit 2 of our shipments last week." "They're testing us," another growled. "The Vescari family thinks Adrian has grown soft." Soft. The word made my stomach twist. Adrian's voice cut through, low and lethal. "Then we remind them who runs this city." Silence followed, heavy with the promise of violence. The men dispersed quickly. Adrian remained, his posture rigid, his hands clenched at his sides. I should have left. I should have gone back to my quarters. But instead I stepped forward. "Adrian." His head snapped toward me. For a moment anger flared in his eyes. Not at me, I realized, but at the situation. "You shouldn't be here," he said sharply. "I heard them," I admitted. "The Vescari family. They're coming for you." His expression softened just slightly. "They've been coming for years." I swallowed. "What are you going to do?" "What I always do." His voice was steel. "Protect what's mine." Before I could respond, the lights flickered. And then the sound. Glass shattering. Shouts. Gunfire. My heart leapt into my throat. "Stay behind me," Adrian barked, pulling a gun from beneath his jacket with terrifying swiftness. The hallway erupted in chaos. Masked men surged through the broken windows, weapons raised. Adrian moved like a predator unleashed. His shots were precise, controlled, each one finding its mark. Blood sprayed, men dropped, the marble floor stained red. I pressed against the wall, trembling, the reality of his world crashing over me. One intruder broke past the guards, charging straight for me. My scream tore out before I could stop it. But Adrian was there. His arm shot out, catching the man's throat in a brutal grip. He slammed him against the wall, the impact reverberating through the hall. The man gasped, struggled, then went limp as Adrian drove a bullet through his chest. The body crumpled at my feet. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Adrian turned, his eyes finding mine through the smoke and chaos. For a moment all I saw was the devil himself. Ruthless, merciless, drenched in violence. And then his hand was on me, cupping my face, his voice low, urgent. "Are you hurt?" I shook my head, though my body trembled uncontrollably. His thumb brushed my cheek, smearing blood I hadn't realized was there. "Now you know who I am," he murmured. "And you're still here." The world burned around us. Gunfire, shouts, sirens wailing in the distance. But in that moment I understood the truth. Adrian DeLuca was both my protector and my prison. My salvation and my damnation. And I was too far gone to turn back. The house smelled faintly of smoke and blood even 2 days after the attack. The broken glass had been cleared, the floors scrubbed, the bodies buried in silence. But the memory lingered, clinging to every shadow. I moved through the halls like someone living in 2 worlds. On the surface, everything looked polished and calm. Guards patrolled with their usual precision, staff whispered their usual gossip. But underneath it all, I could feel the tension thrumming. Adrian had been gone most of the day, locked in meetings I wasn't allowed to attend. Which left me in Sophia's company far more than I wanted. That evening, I was reviewing Adrian's schedule at the desk outside his study when Sophia appeared. She didn't knock, didn't clear her throat. She just appeared, her dark eyes fixing on me like a hawk. "You have a moment, Miss Marlowe." It wasn't a question. "Yes, Miss Sophia." I rose, setting down my pen. She gestured down the hall. "Walk with me." We stepped into the garden, the night air crisp, the roses gleaming faintly under lantern light. For a few moments, silence stretched between us, broken only by the crunch of gravel beneath our feet. Then she spoke. "Do you know what you've gotten yourself into?" I stiffened. "I'm doing my job." Sophia's lips curved faintly, but there was no warmth in it. "No. You're doing far more than that. You've crossed into dangerous territory, child." He crept up my neck. "Whatever you're implying." "I imply nothing," she interrupted sharply. "I see. I've seen it before. The way he looks at you. The way he bends rules for you. You think it's a gift? It's a curse." I swallowed. Why are you telling me this? Her gaze was unflinching. Because women who catch his attention never last. Some run. Some are ruined. Some are buried. He may protect you today, but tomorrow? Her voice softened just slightly. Tomorrow, you may be the weakness his enemies exploit. I wrapped my arms around myself. You don't know me. I know enough. Her eyes narrowed. You think your loyalty will save you? That his affection will protect you? I've watched this empire rise from blood and fire. The only law here is survival. And women are not built to survive in this world. Anger flickered inside me, pushing past the fear. Then maybe I'll be the exception. Sophia studied me for a long moment. Then she sighed, shaking her head. That's what the others said. We stopped at the edge of the garden where the lantern light faded into darkness. Her voice dropped, almost a whisper. Do not mistake his protection for safety. The closer you get to Adrian DeLuca, the more you will bleed for him. Her words chilled me, sinking deep into my bones. And yet, even as I returned to my quarters, her warning echoing in my mind, I knew one thing with terrifying certainty. I wasn't leaving. The test came the following week. I didn't know it was a test at first. It began like any other day, reviewing files, organizing appointments, delivering Adrian's messages. He was away in the city, locked in a tense negotiation. By afternoon, Marco, one of his lieutenants, appeared at my office door. His grin was wolfish, his tone falsely casual. Eliza, the boss asked me to give you something. He slid a flash drive across the desk. I frowned. What is it? Evidence, Marco said, lowering his voice. Bank records. Proof that DeLuca's been laundering millions. The feds would kill for this. Cold wash through me. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to understand something. Marco leaned closer, his eyes glittering. He doesn't care about you. You're just another pawn. He'll discard you when it suits him, just like Antonio. But you could walk away. Give this to the right people and you'd be free. Rich even. You'd never have to serve another drink or bow to another command. My hands shook as I stared at the flash drive. It was everything he said. Proof. A chance to save myself. But it was also bait. I knew it, even as temptation whispered in my ear. What if I say no? I asked quietly. Marco's grin widened. Then you're a fool. And fools don't last long in this house. He left me there, the flash drive heavy in my palm, my heart pounding like a drum. Hours crawled by. The choice gnawed at me. Freedom. Betrayal. Survival. When Adrian returned that evening, I was waiting in his study, the flash drive on the desk before me. He closed the door, his eyes flicking from the drive to my face. Slowly, deliberately, he sat across from me. You found something today, he said softly. My throat tightened. Marco gave it to me. He said. I know what he said. Adrian's voice was calm, too calm. And now I want to know what you did. I pushed the flash drive toward him. My hands trembled, but my voice was steady. I didn't even look at it. It's yours. For a long moment, silence stretched. His gaze locked with mine, searching, stripping me bare. Then slowly he leaned back. Relief flickered across his face, so subtle I almost missed it. Do you know what this was, Eliza? I swallowed. A test. Yes. His voice dropped lower. Antonio failed it. You didn't. He reached across the desk, his hand covering mine. Warm. Firm. You proved yourself tonight, he murmured. And from this day forward, you are untouchable in this house. My breath caught. He rose, pulling me up with him, his hand still clasping mine. His other hand cupped my jaw, tilting my face toward his. You belong to me, he whispered. And now everyone knows it. His lips brushed mine, claiming me not with gentleness but with certainty. The flash drive sat forgotten on the desk, useless now. Because I had chosen my side. As I had chosen him. The day of the negotiation arrived, cloaked in tension. For weeks, whispers had circulated. The Vescari family wanted a truce. Or maybe a takeover. Nobody knew. All I knew was that Adrian had been more silent, more calculating than ever. His men sharpened their focus, patrols doubled, meetings stretched into long nights filled with maps and hushed strategy. And now tonight it would all come to a head. I dressed carefully in the gown Sophia had left for me, black silk that clung to my body and gleamed faintly under the light. She hadn't said a word when she delivered it, but her eyes had. Told. Measuring. Warning. When Adrian appeared in the doorway, my breath caught. He wore a suit of midnight, his tie perfectly knotted, his cufflinks glinting faintly. Power radiated from him, but so did calm certainty, as if he already knew the night's outcome. "You're coming with me," he said simply. I hesitated. "To the negotiation?" "Yes." His gaze burned into mine. "I want them to see you." My stomach twisted. "Adrian, I don't." "Trust me," he interrupted softly but firmly. "Tonight you stand beside me." The car ride was silent but heavy. I stared out the tinted windows as the city blurred by, my heart hammering. His hand rested lightly on mine, not demanding, not controlling. Just there. The meeting took place in a grand, dimly lit restaurant closed to the public for the night. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured light over long tables, but the warmth of the decor couldn't mask the atmosphere. This wasn't dinner. This was war disguised as civility. The Vescari family was already seated when we entered. Men in sharp suits, faces carved from arrogance and greed. At their center sat Lorenzo Vescari, silver-haired and smiling like a wolf. "Adrian," he said smoothly, rising to clasp his hand. "At last. We should have met sooner." Adrian's smile was a blade. "You've been busy stealing from me." Lorenzo chuckled as if it were all a joke. "Business is business." Their men circled, eyes sharp, hands resting too close to hidden weapons. The air hummed with unspoken threat. Adrian guided me forward, his hand at the small of my back. Every eye in the room shifted to me. "And who is this?" Lorenzo asked, his gaze raking over me. "A new ornament?" The men around him chuckled darkly. Heat rushed to my face. But Adrian's voice silenced them instantly. "This," he said, his tone slicing through the room, "is Eliza Marlowe. My associate. My partner. And from this night forward, my queen." The laughter died. Silence crashed down. I froze, his words ringing in my ears. "My queen." The Vescari men shifted uneasily. Lorenzo's smile faltered. "That's bold. You're putting a great deal of trust in a woman who until recently served drinks at charity galas." Adrian's eyes narrowed. "I put my trust where it belongs. Eliza has proven her loyalty. And that is more than I can say for many men in this room." The challenge hung heavy in the air. Lorenzo chuckled, though the edge in it betrayed his unease. "Very well. If she is your queen, then she sits at your right hand tonight." Adrian pulled out a chair for me, seating me beside him at the head of the table. My hands trembled under the linen cloth, but outwardly I kept my head high. The negotiation began. Numbers. Territories. Promises dressed as threats. I barely understood the details, but I understood the undercurrent. Every word was a test. And Adrian, calm, steady, merciless, won every exchange. At one point Lorenzo leaned forward, his eyes glinting. "But what if your little queen here betrays you? What then?" Adrian didn't hesitate. His hand found mine under the table, squeezing hard enough to anchor me. "Then she dies," he said flatly. The table went silent. My heart stopped. But then he added, his gaze cutting across every man present. "And if she doesn't betray me, if she remains loyal, then she outlives all of you." The men shifted, uneasy, glancing at one another. And in that moment I understood what he'd done. He hadn't just elevated me. He'd painted me as untouchable. His choice. His queen. Anyone who moved against me now moved against him. The rest of the negotiation dragged into the night, but the outcome was clear. Adrian had won. When we left, his hand never left mine. In the car, silence stretched. Finally I whispered, "Why did you do that?" He turned, his eyes burning into mine. "Because the world needed to see you. To know you are mine." "And what about me?" My voice cracked. "Did you ever ask what I wanted?" He studied me for a long moment. Then he cupped my jaw, his thumb brushing my cheek. "No," he said softly. "Because deep down you already know what you want. And it's me." I wanted to deny it. I wanted to scream at him. But the truth pulsed hot in my chest, undeniable. I was already his. The following morning the news was everywhere. Adrian DeLuca seen with mysterious woman at negotiation. The devil crowns his queen. The headlines made my stomach twist, but there was no escaping it now. My anonymity was gone. The world knew my face, my name, and every enemy Adrian had just saw me as his greatest weakness. I spent the day restless, pacing my quarters, unable to focus. When the knock came at dusk, I already knew who it was. Adrian stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "Walk with me." We moved through the gardens in silence. The roses glowed faintly in the twilight, the air rich with their scent. Finally, at the edge of the fountain, he stopped. "Eliza," he said softly, turning to face me. "You've seen what this world is. The blood, the danger, the cost. And yet you stayed. You passed every test. You chose me." My throat tightened. Did I really choose? Or did you leave me no choice? His gaze didn't waver. "You had a choice. You could have walked away at any time. You could have betrayed me like Antonio. But you didn't. You stayed." Silence stretched. The fountain's water whispered behind us. "Why me?" asked my voice raw. "Out of everyone, why me?" Adrian stepped closer, his hand finding mine, pulling it to his chest. I felt the steady pound of his heart beneath my palm. "Because you see me," he murmured. "Not the devil. Not the empire. Me. And no one else ever has." My chest ached. He leaned down, his lips brushing my ear. "You are my heart. My blade. My weakness. And my empire. Without you, I am nothing but a king with no throne." Tears stung my eyes. I hated him. I needed him. I couldn't untangle the two anymore. "And if I say yes?" I whispered. "Then you are mine," he said simply. "Forever." The choice pressed down on me, heavy, inevitable. I thought of my mother, safe now in the best care money could buy. I thought of the woman I'd been, invisible, forgotten, drowning in debt. And I thought of the man before me, dangerous, ruthless, but also the only one who had ever truly seen me. I exhaled shakily. "Yes." His lips crashed onto mine, fierce and claiming, sealing the vow. His arms wrapped around me, pulling me tight against him as though he would never let me go. And in that embrace I understood the truth. I was no longer Eliza Marlowe, the girl who served drinks at galas. I was Adrian DeLuca's queen. The devil's queen. And though enemies gathered in the shadows, though danger loomed on the horizon, I didn't care. Because I had chosen my throne. And my throne was him. And that's where tonight's chapter ends. Eliza has taken her place at Adrian's side, but the real war is only beginning. What would you do in her place? Walk away from the devil or step into his empire? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed this episode, and subscribe so you don't miss the next twist in this dangerous love story. Until then, stay curious, stay hooked, and remember, every queen has her price.